Hey Christian, this is Kristen from the Positive Psychology Podcast. I just wanted to say thank you for checking out my station, and congratulations that you talk about mental health. I've said it to other guys on Anchor. I'm always happy when I see men talking actually about their feelings and their struggles, not because I want them to become more like girls or women, but because I think we are all humans, and there are certain ways which are very destructive to deal with emotion, and I think boys are socialized often in the wrong way and become guys who can struggle a bit with emotions. So yeah, I think it's good that you're doing that, and I hope you reach a lot of people, but especially also guys, with your station. Cheers, bye-bye.
Hey everybody, C-Note here for the C-Note Audio Extravaganza. This is a bonus episode today because, well, it's kind of a nice follow-up to today's topic, which is depression and mental health and mental illness and struggle. And much of it was telling my story, but hey, go. Somebody was driving and not moving. It's the problem of looking at your phone while you're driving. I'm on my way home from work because I decided to bow out today. I decided to take a mental health day, / I'm also physically feeling sick, but I think that's also a result of stress and whatnot. Kind of caught myself just sort of staring at my computer and not really feeling like I was going to contribute today. And I felt like I was going to have to qualify my emotions to everybody. And while I'm more than happy to do that, like I really don't mind being open and talking to people about how I'm feeling, it's just not something I wanted to deal with all day. And I just didn't have it. I don't want to pretend to give my best when I'm not. And it's not good for, personal, professional image, but it's also not good for myself to try to push through and just give a weaker version of myself, I guess you could say. I say weaker loosely, but in a way it is. I'm also physically sick, and it's just, I need to go home and get some rest and really just kind of let my brain relax and take my mind off of stuff. I also am doing this bonus episode because I got a really great call in from Kristen of Positive Psychology, sort of commending me for talking about mental health, and particularly for men. And I'm going to play that for you, and then I'd like to give my response because I think it's an interesting topic to talk about, particularly when it pertains to men and young boys and emotions and expressing yourself. And I think it's something that needs to be done more often than it does. Society kind of holds us back from expressing emotions because it's not manly enough, or it's too feminine, or whatever the perception is. It's unhealthy. So I'm going to play that for you now. So thank you, Kristen, for those kind words. I think it's true. I think it's true that we need to, as men, talk about it more. Particularly like the examples I used in my last episode about Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell. There's an epidemic of older men in particular in their 40s where it's kind of cliche to say that it's like a midlife crisis, but I think a lot of men are coming into emotional turmoil and difficulty. They're losing their parents. They're going through more job difficulties. They're going through maybe they're losing their spouses, maybe they're losing their close friends, and they really don't feel like they have anyone to turn to. It's sort of a known thing that men, after their spouses die later in life, if their wives die before they do, unless men attach to someone else fairly quickly, a lot of men don't last very long after their wives die. because they put a lot of emotional energy and support on their wives and not on many other people in their lives. Women are known to last longer, for lack of a better phrase, because they have that emotional support system. Men do not cultivate that. They have a lot of people in their lives that they maybe make jokes with or they spend time with, but they don't really open up emotionally about how they're feeling. Even aside from a mental health standpoint, from like a negative mental health standpoint. Maybe that's the big thing. Maybe that's the shift, is having people understand that mental health is not about ADD and bipolar disorder and all these other things. Mental health is about everyone, and particularly for men, reaching a lot of young men and really men of all ages, to have them think outside of their own expectations and social structure and how they're meant to behave around people. That's why I kind of preach like not giving a shit about what people think about you, because that's what leads us to go down these paths of not being emotional enough or sharing how we feel because it's taboo. Like other men won't respect us because we don't express our emotions. That's nonsense. It's garbage. If you have men in your life, or anyone in your life, because women do it too, who talk down to you because you're quote unquote not being manly because you express your emotions in the appropriate setting. I don't mean being whiny all the time, but being appropriately expressive of your emotions and being outward and realistic about it. Like, that's a healthy thing to do, and it's good to have people around you that support that and understand that, and understand that you need to be aware of those things for raising children as well. You know, you can let young boys cry, let them work through their emotions, because suppressing other emotions like sadness or disappointment ends up manifesting in anger. And ironically, it seems like anger is not seen as an emotion, which is strange, because when you think about it, and it's been proven, I don't have the research, so I guess look it up, but from what I've read, I should say it's not proven, but from what I've read, men are typically more emotional than women are. But when people think of emotion, they think of crying and sadness, not anger and despair and depression and those deeper emotions. I think women are just better at expressing their emotions more openly, because it's more of what's, I wouldn't say expected, but appropriate of them. Whereas men don't do that. Men end up manifesting that in anger, and we don't see that as an emotion in some strange way. It just kind of occurred to me now as I'm talking about it. But I think it's true. I think we ignore anger as an emotion, and a lot of men are angry or disappointed or depressed or have strong emotions about things, but aren't expressing it in the right way. If you've been dying to start that podcast about doves, or about your favorite jacket, or about a long-lost love, or a murder mystery about a cat who murdered everybody, you can start it now on Spotify for podcasters. I've been on Anchor for a long time, and now it is officially Spotify for podcasters, and it has been a platform that has been growing for forever. And I love it, and I still use it to this day, and it has hosted this podcast for 500 plus episodes now. So I highly recommend it. It is free to use. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. I'm literally on my bed recording on my, like, the phone is on the bed, and I'm just talking, and it's not that complicated. And then you can distribute your podcast on Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are heard. So video podcasts are available too if you want to show your pretty face and have people see you. And you can do all that too. So just do it. It's totally free, no catch. Give it a try. Spotify for podcasters. Let's go. I'm hoping that we're coming to a time where it's starting to slowly become more acceptable for men to be openly emotional. Emotional in a positive and helpful way, because it's interesting. I hear a lot of stories from women about dating and dealing with situations where like men often don't express themselves throughout a relationship, and then when they break it off, or a quick fling, or maybe they have a crush on somebody and it doesn't go their way, a lot of men end up going on like emotional angry tirades towards women, which is a completely different topic in a lot of ways, because the way that men are treating that is inappropriate. But at the same time, because men aren't openly expressing themselves more thoroughly throughout their lives and throughout their day, it kind of comes out in these emotional bursts. And I've been victim to that as well. I've done that to other people too. Like, you know, if somebody I was getting emotionally close to, suddenly close themselves off, that becomes an angry, emotional, intense thing. So men just end up showing their emotions in larger bursts, as opposed to spreading it out more naturally throughout their lives, if that makes sense. It's kind of like thinking about work-life balance. Oh, someone's calling me.
Press the
Hold
pickup
on.
button to answer.
Decline.
Incoming call. Press the pickup button to answer.
Can't talk. Text me.
Incoming call.
Is it still recording? Okay. Woo! That was fun. I'm going to keep that on the air. Why not? I should have just recorded. I should have answered and recorded it. But whatever, it's fine. Anyway, it's kind of like thinking about the work-life balance. Like, when you're spending all of your time at work and separating yourself from home life, by the time you get home, you might not necessarily have all of the energy you would like to focus on your family and focus on the things that you want and need in life. I think an effective balance is actually having all of those things like throughout your life, meaning you're kind of working with family, or integrating family and work into your life a little bit more, as opposed to cleanly separating everything, or putting so much energy into work, 12 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours a day, and not leaving time for family, so that when you do get time for family, it doesn't necessarily feel as good. It all comes out. You're trying to distill everything into a shorter amount of time, and it doesn't feel worth it. And I think a lot of people struggle with that in their lives. It's tricky for men, because I think a lot of men already feel detachment from the family unit in a lot of ways. Like it's just not the, today's world is not the way that it used to be, in terms of like the father being the king of the castle and things like that. I'm not saying things should be that way, but I'm saying that, well, I'm not really sure what I'm saying. My brain's not working too well today. What I'm really trying to say is that men are feeling a little bit more detached from the family unit, because they're not being looked to as like the sole provider or anything like that. It's a little bit more female focused, I guess you could say. And a lot of men maybe feel more of a disconnect. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm just theorizing. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I think is going on there. It's tricky. It's difficult. It's. I think it's more difficult to be a man in the modern world than you think it is. I think there are a lot of perks, obviously, a lot of positives, but I think because of the fight for equality and a lot of other things going on, that a lot of that stuff gets brushed under the table, and it's important to work on everyone. So I want to end this bonus episode of the podcast, by talking about the notion that men should not feel emasculated by expressing their emotions. You should feel, I honestly think men being able to express themselves more often, more openly, and learning how to express themselves appropriately would solve a lot of problems. It's amazing how many social issues are created by insecure men who aren't comfortable expressing themselves. And not being really comfortable and open with that. I mean, you can look to our own president for that. You could tell he's a very insecure kind of guy. And other people in the public eye who are combative and difficult. I mean, a lot of people who are like, I've dealt with so many dudes at bars who were like trying to start fights because they felt like they needed to prove themselves or something. And then men fall into this trap of like alpha and beta nonsense, and like all of that is garbage. Like all of it is a way to try to make themselves feel good about themselves. And then men also treat women inappropriately and aggressively because they need women in their lives as a source of validation. And when they don't get that, they get upset. And that's a whole other big topic to really discuss. But I do think much of it is rooted in insecurity and rooted in the inability and inappropriateness of being able to express themselves emotionally and comfortably, and feeling this pressure to like be quote unquote manly and fit into these boxes of being manly is about being disrespectful to women and being a shithead and whatever, being aggressive and being loud and blah blah blah. It's like none of that matters. None of that is like, I hate all of this like quote unquote real man talk. Look, being emotional, being open about your emotions and being clear about who you are and making sure that you can qualify that to people and being respected by people is no different than ordering a sex on the beach at a restaurant and being judged. Because either way, look, you're not going to grow a vagina by ordering a foo-foo drink, quote unquote. Like, you're not going to become lesser of a man because of what you enjoy. Like, I grew up in a town in Northeast Philly where that was the case, where a lot of men were very, very concerned with their masculinity. And they still very much are. That's why I don't live there anymore. It's an old school way of thinking, and it's nonsense. But much of that is, it's just, I was never concerned with that sort of thing. And to qualify it, I'm not cliche manly. I'm 5'4", chubby, whatever. I am confident in who I am. I guess you could say I'm manly in that sense, but I'm very confident in who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is like feeling good about yourself, being a man, like being male, and defining who that is for yourself. Like, you don't need to fall into these typical constructs of what it is, of what men are, what men should be. It's all nonsense. Like, you should be looking at everything that you see in your life and questioning it, and realizing that your decision to be manly, quote unquote, is somewhat a decision and somewhat not. You did not choose to be born into this world. You did not choose to be surrounded by other men who are insecure about their own manliness and therefore projected that on you, and now you're projecting that on other people. You need to realize that you have a lot more control about changing your behavior than you realize. If you're being shitty, a shitty man who's being terrible to people to prove your quote-unquote manliness, you need to realize that that's a behavior that you can change. So I want to clarify one thing. When I say expressing emotions, I mean appropriately. I mean saying thank you, saying please, saying that you're grateful to someone, calling your wife and telling her that you love her, calling your mother and telling her that you love her, calling your dad and telling you that you love him. Like, you can express those things. Like, you can talk to your buddy and tell him how great he is. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. And what I was getting at before by talking about Northeast Philly and it being a small town and so concerned with their manliness is like, when I grew up, and I'm sure it's not just Philly, but there's places all over the country where we used to refer to things as like gay. Oh, that's gay. Like in a negative way, where it was just like, if somebody was being like a little less than manly or a little bit weird, there are still people that say that stuff. And it drives me nuts. Like, I'm going to be honest. This is going to be super blunt. And it might be not great to hear. But the only thing that makes you gay is the desire to bang dudes. like, it's true. And there's nothing wrong with that. Gay men can be gay. It's fine. But to associate lack of manliness to gayness, there are likely very manly gay men out there. They just happen to like dudes. But what I'm trying to say is like, manliness is often it's just an agreeance, and it's an agreed upon construct that men have agreed is this thing that manliness should be. But you can define that for yourself. Being ultimately quote unquote manliness is honor and respect and treating people openly and being receptive to people and being a nice person, being a good person. That's what makes you manly. And then, being a protector and being a provider. Like, I know that this is a world where men and women are working together and being more partnerships and being more so partners than ever, which is amazing. That is so good. But I think it's instinctual in us as men to be protectors, to be providers, to be the hunters and gatherers. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with being masculine. But at the same time, that masculinity can feel very toxic. Like, there's a difference between being a genuine, masculine, confident person and being a toxic person that is predicating your manliness on what other people think. It doesn't matter what other people think of you as a manly person. It matters what you are doing as a man to the world around you. Does that make sense? I hope it really does. Because when it comes to expressing yourself, expressing your emotions, like, there's honestly nothing more manlier. Like, there's a YouTuber named Ashley Weston. She did a video recently about, like, things that men and women, things that women like or don't like from men. And most of the things that men think women are into don't apply. And the things that women are into often revolve around confidence and personality and being well put together as a person and being respectful to people and expressing yourself, expressing gratitude, expressing emotions, having a good relationship with your mother, like that sort of stuff. And I honestly, those are the things that make men manly. So get over it. Get over that feeling of like being concerned about what other men think when it comes to your manliness. You don't have to drink beer if you don't like beer. Like, stop. It doesn't, who cares? Express who you are, be confident in who you are, and help other men feel the same way. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast and talk about mental health today, because it's a very important topic. You'll see in my Twitter account I put mental health advocate because I want to talk about it. I want people to be more open in talking about it. And that's why there's this stigma, because other people are defining what mental health is. And we, as the mental health people who are dealing with it and suffering with it and embracing it and learning from it, need to be the people that talk about it and share it with the world. So that was a bit of a doozy, but I feel pretty good about it. It's, this topic of men and emotions and mental health. It's super important. I think it's one of the big problems in society, in American society, is this overt desire to be manly, to become this caricature of a man that doesn't actually exist. It exists in the movies. It's the 80s action hero. And it's like, you can be manly in a lot of those ways, but it's also not unmanly to not be that, because not every man is going to be that. It's this alpha and beta nonsense is ridiculous. Often you can be the alpha of a different subject or a different situation or environment. It depends on what you're dealing with. And to put people below you, to say that someone's a beta male, is kind of ridiculous. Really, if anyone wants to define a beta male, it's usually just a guy that's insecure. And really, I would want to lift those guys up. I would want them to feel more confident in themselves and not feel like they need to fight everyone or to prove anything. Because you don't. Who do you have to prove anything to? Like, we're not in this world where there's like this land grab where you have to literally fight people for territory. You go to a real estate agent and you buy a house. Like, you don't have to fight someone to get that stuff. You don't have to fight someone to get a woman. You do online dating and you find someone that you connect with. Like, there's more than ever, we live in a world where we don't have to. And maybe there's a latent desire to do that sort of thing. And that's where I think video games are healthy, because it kind of lets you get that primal urge out. And I think we need more avenues of getting a lot of that primal stuff out, because then it leaks into territories that we don't necessarily need to express those things in. So, I mean, join clubs, join other, watch YouTubers that are expressing manliness and style. The Art of Manliness is amazing. It's an amazing podcast. It's one of my favorites. And they talk about great articles, and I think men need just as much support as women do. And I think it's amazing that there is so much support out there for social change and growth when it comes to women and minorities. But we can't ignore men as a result either. So I'm not saying focus on men as opposed to women. I'm saying let's include men in the conversation. Let's include mental health, and let's make mental health a general discussion for everyone and not just special cases. I don't want people to just talk about suicide when somebody commits suicide themselves and shares these hotlines. I want people to care about each other's mental health. I want them to think about their children's mental health and think about how they feel, and not necessarily try to inject how we wanted to feel as a kid onto them. That's a whole other thing. So, I mean, there's topics we can talk about how men treat women, which is, there's so much wrong about that needs to be fixed. But ultimately, I feel like if men can feel more secure with themselves, then they would treat women better, they would treat each other better, and they would treat their parents better. They would treat everyone surrounding them with better respect, and understand that if a woman doesn't like you, she just doesn't like you. Like, it's not even her fault. It's like, it's chemicals and chemistry and how she feels, and that's okay. There are other options. There are 7 billion people in the world. You're going to find a girl that's going to want to spend time with you. Don't get upset about it. I mean, express yourself rationally and you can say to her that you were disappointed and I'm sorry this didn't work, and then you move on. That's an appropriate expression of your emotions. But often you just bottle it up and you're just like, fuck you. Like, that's stupid. Don't do that. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic with men and mental health at RivalMyDesign on Twitter and RivalMyDesign.com or HiMyNameIsChristian.com. And listen next time. Bye. I was about to post this podcast and I had one last thought before we move on with our lives. When it comes to men and comfortably expressing their emotions, it's not just a male responsibility. There are a lot of women out there who also push those stereotypes and expect that of men. And I think that ends up pushing men to continue to be this unhealthy version of men more than anything, because they think that's what women like. And women think that that's what men should be. And often that turns out to be not good. There was one time where I was at the dinner with my wife, and I had gotten like a strawberry daiquiri or some kind of something like that, and the waitress asked me, like, so why are you getting that drink? I'm like, I don't know, it sounds like it tastes good. And she brought it back, and then she just kind of made this face of this very like judgy, like, here's your foo-foo drink. I'm like, okay, thanks, I'm gonna enjoy it. She's like, how? And she kept kind of like badgering me little by little, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, what does it matter? I like it. It's delicious. Like, it's not gonna take the hair off of my nuts, like, or something, like something that some dude would say. Like, it's not gonna ruin my masculinity, my sense of purpose, my sense of loving my wife or being attracted to her or wanting to have kids or have sex or whatever. Like, it doesn't change any of that. So why does that matter? What is your false perception of me, your ridiculous perception of quote unquote manliness matter? Like, for all you know, I could be like a super rugged type when I go home and do manly things when I go home, but then still enjoy a daiquiri. Like, you can enjoy yourself. That's fine. Like, I just think it's nonsensical, and I think it's even worse when women continue to do it for men, because it makes men feel like they need to do it. So I think the ownership falls on everyone to really think about how you're affecting people with your perceptions of what manliness, quote unquote, should be. I think most of it is stupid. I think some of it is acceptable, but most of it is pretty stupid. This is something more than anything that I would love to hear people's feedback on, because I think a lot of people are very passionate about their perceptions of manliness. Particularly, I think a lot of women are like, I like this type of guy who is very like angry and aggressive all the time and blah blah blah. Sometimes they like the angry, insecure types, but I don't know. Maybe that's why there's a 50% divorce rate in the country, because people expect that of each other, and then when you get into it, it's not very sustainable. Maybe that's what it is. I don't really know. I'm not going to say I know, but that could be what it is. So just think about that for a little bit. Let that marinate. Let that stew. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And I hope you guys have a good day. I'm going to go home and relax, rest my brain for a while. And feel free to chat with me on Twitter at RivalMyDesign or on Instagram at RivalMyDesign, RivalMyDesign.com, and YouTube and Snapchat, all the same name, and all that good stuff. Hi, my name is Christian.com, and thank you for listening to the C-Note Audio Extravaganza, and I will catch you on the next time.